Hi everyone, this is Jakob from Clear Sky Astrophoto, and today I'll be reviewing the A68 tripod from Kingjoy as well as their T20 Ballhead, but more on that later. Now, I'm an avid astrophotographer, and that means I take pictures of the night sky, and for this I need a setup that is stable and I can rely on. And also, because I carry this setup around with me in the field, I don't need to carry around a burden. Hence, the tripod and the setup that I carry around has to be as light as possible, but still be stable. Now, what you can see here in front of me is the A68 tripod, my sky tracker, my camera, and the T20 Ballhead. For the review, I'll be reviewing the tripod and the ballhead, but this is my setup as it looks when I'm out in the field. So obviously I wanted to show you this so you can see it with equipment mounted on. However, this tripod is a beast. It's incredibly stable. I've had it with me in the field for many months now, and I've never experienced one time that I couldn't set it up properly, I couldn't get it level, or that I wasn't able to keep it stable. It stays stable the entire time. It's easy to set up, it's easy to get level. So I am very, very pleased with this tripod. As well as the T20 Ballhead, it has loads of features as well as the tripod, but I'll get into detail with the specific features of the tripod. See, the tripod here is made of aluminium, which makes it lightweight, and it's still very rigid, which is very important for me, because if this camera is able to move even the slightest bit when I take images of the night sky, then I have to delete that image and make a new one. This means, for me, precision and stability is vital for what I do with my photography. It comes packed up in a small nifty bag that you can carry on your back, on your shoulder, which is nice. I don't use the bag. I'm used to just carrying this tripod around with me in the field. But the cool thing about this is that you can carry it on your shoulder with no problem whatsoever. So you can just pick up the tripod and go put it over your shoulder and then just head on to the next motive. Now, for the tripod itself, let's look at it. Because this tripod can get really, really high. And because it's a telescopic mechanism, you can also fold it very, very tightly packed together in the bag, of course. But setting up this tripod, you just turn these knobs and then you can extend the legs. And as you can see, this is quite easy and quite fast to do. And still, when you need the third leg, still easy, because the other two legs are incredibly stable. There's no wobble in the tripod. Even when it's fully extended, you can't make it unstable. It's impossible. And if we take it to the highest level, then of course for me, this will be too high for me to actually use my camera. But if this is a problem you encounter, that you need to have a very, very high tripod, this is no problem. And even when you fold the legs quite tight together, it's still stable. So as you can see, this tripod can get really, really high. I have to reach up with my arms in order to use my camera for this. So of course, I don't use this feature as much as maybe a taller guy would, but it's cool that you can do it, because it also means that if you need to extend one of your legs to get, let's say you can't get a proper 3-leg focus, then you can extend one of the legs to the sides and then maybe get a grip this way. This makes it incredibly attractive that you can take these legs and you can adjust them so that they are almost vertical. And now we're packed back up together. As I said, this mount is rigid. It's really rigid. The legs have automatic stops so that when you pack it up, like so, you can see I need to apply quite a bit of force to turn the legs. And this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing, because if I were able to just wobble the legs back and forth, then there would be wobble in the tripod. But this is not the case. I need to apply force to actually move the leg to the position I want. And when I extend the leg all the way, it has an automatic stop. Now, let's say that I have fully contracted the tripod and I need to get even lower. I want a really low image of the ground or something like that. Then I have the option to pull out this pin, and then I can extend the leg so that it's almost perfectly level. And this, of course, I can do with all 3 legs. It only requires that I push back a little bit on each leg, pull out this pin, and when I extend it fully, it snaps into place. So this way you can actually have the tripod almost on the ground, which is excellent, because let's say you're shooting a beach scene, or you want images of the waves crashing up against you. It's not exactly smart to leave the camera on the beach. So this way you can have your tripod on the beach. And I've had this in salty water quite a few times, and you don't notice it. It doesn't do anything to it. Of course, I dry it off afterwards, yeah, but it doesn't take any damage from it. And this means that you can have your camera really, really low down in some environments where the tripod can handle the environment and keep your precious, expensive camera out of harm's way, which for me is an excellent option. So when you need to fold it back up, you simply just take the legs and extend them inwards. Then the lock mechanism automatically snaps in place every time you pass one of the settings. And of course, when you reach the desired setting, you just pull back like so, and the legs are locked and they are extended as far as they need to go in this particular setting. Now, obviously, because I'm an astrophotographer, one of the things that is really important to me is being able to track the stars properly. Now, when I have to track the stars, I use this small simple star tracker, which is essentially just an engine that follows the sky through the night. But in order to do this, I need to align it perfectly with the North Star, also called Polaris. And to do this, I have a small telescope here that I guide to the north to find Polaris. But when I also do this, I have these small adjustment screws here on the sky tracker, and this has a finite amount of adjustment and can be quite tricky to adjust perfectly. And the really, really cool thing about this tripod here, for me, using a sky tracker, is that I don't need to worry about setting it up perfectly to the north with this telescope. Because right now north is this way for me. So let's say I'm out in the field at night and I just place the tripod and I find the perfect position. Then with another tripod, I would have to do like this in order to position myself correctly to the north. But with this A68 tripod, I simply loosen this, and because this has a loose base, when it's mounted here, I can simply turn it around effortlessly. And this way I can align my small telescope to the north easy, very, very easy in fact. And then when it's aligned, I simply just lock the mechanism and then it goes nowhere. It can even support when you lift up in the base, it can support the tripod with no problem whatsoever. Of course, this is not recommended, but this is just to show that these locking mechanisms, they don't play around. They work, and they work excellently, and they work when it's hot, they work when it's bitterly cold. I was out a few nights ago and it was minus 10 degrees Celsius, so of course the mount and the camera was covered in ice, but still I just loosened this, turned it around, easy, tightened it again, no problems whatsoever. It also has built in a level mechanism which is visible even when you have all this gear mounted on it, which makes it incredibly easy to set up the tripod and get it level. Because for me, this is also one of the very important things, that I'm actually able to level this. Because if the tripod is not level, then my further adjustment of this small telescope becomes, regardless how good I do it, the stars will still get bad. So for me, being able to see a level and being able to set it up level immediately and then focus on adjusting the small telescope so I can further on take my pictures is an excellent option. With many tripods I've had before, I have tried that even though they are rigid to start with, then when you start to use them, when you start to move them around in the field, then you are constantly tightening up these screws every time you've been out on a session. And even though you tighten them up quite well, if this base isn't solid enough, then you'll experience that even though these screws are tight and you've done everything you can with another possible tripod, it will still get wobbly and be able to turn around on its center base, which obviously for photography is a no-go. But with this, it stays stable all the time. Now, in addition to stability, on the base of this turntable on the tripod, there is a small hook. And in this hook, you can use to either tether the tripod. If it's really bad conditions, then you can tether the tripod onto something that you can latch onto. But if you need that extra stability, let's say you're in a really windy condition and you experience a little bit of drift in the tripod itself or vibrations, then you can hang a bag of water so it dangles underneath, and this will increase the stability of the tripod further. I haven't had an issue where I needed to use it yet, but it's a cool thing that they put it on here, because then you always have this option to go back. Now, on my star tracker here, I have a T20 Ballhead mounted, and the T20 Ballhead from Kingjoy has quite a few settings, because you can loosen this knob and then easily turn around if you're making a panorama. And it's of course graded in lines, so you can see how many degrees am I turning now, and now, which makes it really easy to plan out a panorama and make sure that the images overlap in the proper way, so that you don't have to go back and take a new picture. You can do this at the bottom, but you can also do this at the top. So you can loosen this screw here, and then you can turn it at the top as well. And this is useful for if, let's say, you have it set up and you have your ball head at a specific angle, then you can actually loosen this part here and then turn it on its axis alone, so you don't have to interfere with the ball head setting at all. And this is a really useful solution. The ball head itself can be tightened, and you can control via this small knob here. You can actually control how much tension you want to apply to the ball knob. This means that if you screw it fully in, then you can release and lock again, and it's actually it's kind of like a snap lock, and if you extend this screw fully out, then you can give it as much tension as needs be. I usually tighten my ball heads quite a lot because I've experienced in the past that when the temperature changes, then because of the weight of the camera, you can experience that a ball head will drop because the tension releases. But I haven't experienced with this yet, and I've tightened this quite a lot, and it still works perfectly. Now, the way you attach your camera to the ball head is fairly straightforward. You have a locking mechanism that you screw onto the bottom of the camera, and then you simply just angle it down like this and tighten the forward knob. When you do this and when you mount this in the ball head, because it has two small protruding bolts here on the side, it's impossible for the camera by means of action or accident to slide off the ball head itself. So once this is locked in, this is fully secure. And the nice thing about these locks in particular is that instead of them, this one and the small one here on the side, instead of them being round knobs that you need to turn with all 3 fingers, let's say it's cold, then it's a small arm which gives you leverage, and this means that it's easy to loosen up, it's easy to turn, and it's easy to tighten again. And this particular knob, when you turn the ball head itself, you don't need to over tighten it. You just need to loosen it, turn it, tighten it again, and it locks fully up. And actually the same with the ball head, because the ball head, when you loosen it, you can position it every which way you want. And for us that make panorama photos of the night or the day sky, a cool feature is that it has 2 slithers here, so that you're actually able to lock it in place fairly simply, and then you can extend it all the way down here so it locks into one of these slithers. Then you have multiple options. You can, of course, pan the camera up and down like this and then make a vertical photo, but you can also do like this without any problems whatsoever. I tend to have it in this position. This means that when I turn this around so you can see it, this actually means that I have, because I'm left-handed, I like to have the control of the ball knob for my left hand. So when I loosen this, when I use this in the field, I can use my right hand for the camera and I can use my left hand for the ball knob. And the slithers here line up perfectly so I can make a panorama quite easily, and I can very easily adjust it any which way I want. And even though I don't use these slithers, let's say I forget about it or it's not important, even if I don't use them, you can actually get up to an angle of about 45 degrees, which is quite a lot, especially if you're using a wide angle lens, like I always do. I use a 24mm for most of my work when I'm out in the field. On one of the legs, the tripod has some padding here, which is made of some hard foam. You might wonder what this is for. This is of course for carrying the tripod itself, but I find that when I'm out in the field, when I use it in the field, the coolest thing about this foam padding is actually that when I put it on my shoulder, I use this foam to put my hand on so I don't have to touch the cold aluminium. Because obviously aluminium is an alloy that's really good at conducting temperature, so it gets really cold at night. But with this foam, I can easily and comfortably take on, put my hand on here and carry it away with me in the field with no problem whatsoever. And on the ball head, as you can see, there are multiple indentations here where it's marked how many degrees you're turning, and this enables you to very easily make a structured and planned panorama with no problems whatsoever. It also has this on the top of the ball head, and on the ball head itself actually which is a fun feature. On the ball head itself, there is also a level. So let's say you set the tripod level and you're confident in that it's where it should be. And then maybe you need to set a perfect level before you shoot your panorama across some mountains or a city, whatever. It's actually a cool feature that it has a level right here, because this means that if you made the slightest error in lining up the tripod, then you just level your ball head perfectly, lock it in place, and then when you loosen this part, you just turn this as you wish, and it stays level the entire time, of course, because this is perfectly flat. So, final thoughts on the A68 Kingjoy. This tripod, it's a beast, but it's a good thing because it's so stable. I've really grown to love this tripod. I really enjoy that I can just fling it inside my car, go to location, set it up easily. The legs, when I loosen the leg screws, the legs extend almost on themselves, and a quick tight and I'm going up and running on the fly. Same goes with the ball head. The ball head is insanely easy to control to make my panoramas, and this is either if I'm going vertical or horizontal. It doesn't matter. It's easy, easy, easy. And at the end, that's what this is all about. Of course, I like expensive equipment. I like being able to geek out about all the features that I have. But for me, in the end, it's all about taking the pictures. And the tripod and this ball head enables me to be a better photographer for this very reason.